Thursday before the close of the collection of the PVCs. And the way it started, we met with them before. When we met with the reg more than about 2 weeks ago, they had stopped giving PVCs at the local government, at the ward level. But we asked them, we pleaded with them to reopen that, because the distance between the local government and the wards are quite, quite a long one, and the landmass of Osun, letting people go to local government will not have worked well. And they actually heeded to our plea, and they reopened. And so many people collected, about more than 1.5 million collected their PVCs. And so that's a lot of kudos. And so the turnout that we're seeing, which is more than 50%, is something that we are quite excited with. I think the voting, the Electoral Act is being monitored, and the security agencies did tell us that they are going to be able to guide. But we can do more if everybody is standing upright for Nigeria. Both the security, the INEC, staff, the ad hoc staff. I think a lot of training also went in to the, in preparation for Osun, and I think it paid off.
Okay, thank you once again, Nairobi. Let's get back here to the studio where we have Victor, our local director, voter education and publicity, INEC. Well, a number of Nigerians have shot encomiums, on INEC for a successful outing in Osun State. And of course, from what Nairobi had just told us, it does appear that INEC performed creditably with respect to Osun election. But I'd like you to come from the angle of challenges that you experience, that could be addressed as we look forward to 2023 general election. What are those, fault lines, with respect to Osun election that you'd like to correct, next time around?
Thank you so much. But before I talk about the challenges, I would like to convey the gratitude of the Commission to all stakeholders who work with INEC to deliver successful election in Osun State. And not only in Osun State, also in Ekiti State, because within 4 weeks, that's a month, we conducted 2 governorship elections. And 2 of them were highly successful. We are happy with that, and we need to actually accept the accolades from Nigerians, but also let people know that the commendation goes around all the stakeholders, NYC, who of course supplied us with the bulk of presiding officers. All those young men and women performed very well. The security agencies, the voters themselves who turned out. We had 55% turnout. That's extremely good. For some time now, we have not had such turnout. And so when we look at it, even though as a commission we have not done a review of the Osun election, because yesterday was Sunday and today is the first day we'll be at work, but we are happy, and we are not trying to take the whole accolades alone. We want to also let our stakeholders know that we are grateful, and to also say that such collaboration should continue as we move towards the 2023 elections. Talking about the challenges, we'll do a full review, as I said, but we also know that we do not have 100% opening. That's as at 8:30. I can say we had more than 95%. More than 5%. You will call that one an A+. If we are sitting for an examination, but there's no perfection in anything in life. Anything that human beings will have to handle, you have some few levels of challenges. We will look into the whole situation and know where the little places where we fought a little, so that we can approach the general elections with a higher level of confidence and readiness. And I like to mention something specifically, that this time around, the people of Osun State, that is the voters in Osun State, really tried. We were there 2 weeks before the election. The chairman was there to assess the readiness of our office there. We were also there a few days before the election for the stakeholders meetings, and we moved around to many local governments, and we saw the enthusiasm, people willing to, collect cards, people talking about their readiness to vote. And I think we should note that Nigeria's democracy is actually progressing as it should be. And I would like to tell the powers that be that we need to continue to allow this democracy to grow, because it will be to the benefit of all Nigerians if we're able to get to that level that we want to get to.
All right, thank you, Victor Aluko, for your initial comments. Let's bring in now Professor Victor Adetola. The Ekiti election went on, and about a month or so later now, we've had the Osun governorship election, both done and dusted. But in the specific case of Osun, what was the election, its conduct, and the outcome? What do they represent?
Thank you very much. It's a progressive improvement in the electoral process, especially if we focus on the institution, INEC, as the key election management body. Prior to this time, we all know where we're coming from, where in terms of public confidence in that institution is quite low. But in the past few months, I think the improvement has been dramatic. And I want to add that a lot of planning indeed went into this preparation, both at the level of collaboration among the critical stakeholders, intensifying the training and preparation, and of course, the deployment of technology. Now, there's no controversy today about the use of technology in administering election in Nigeria. I think this is good to note. And there's a way in which it signals what is likely to happen in with future elections. I mean, with public confidence high, with the enthusiasm and the turnout, I think we can look forward to a successful 2023.
Yes, because by 2023, INEC is going to grasp with the 36 states of the federation. It's not going to be an off-the-cycle election as we've had in Ekiti and Osun State. So it's going to be a more serious test case for INEC, and of course the implementation of the new Electoral Act. I'll still go back to INEC. I have concerns about the performance of INEC, which has been, rated very high, as you rightly pointed out. In fact, many Nigerians are shoring encomiums on INEC and what have you. But I still believe that INEC also has some areas to touch on. You have men in the field during the elections, and they may have observed. Of course, you said you have not really met, to evaluate the election. Yes, but there could also be some complaints from some stakeholders during the election. Was there any complaints on the part of the political parties, or perhaps some of your workers, especially the ad hoc workers, on events that took place during the election that should be, taken care of in the next election?
I can say for now, we have not harvested all those complaints from the field. I told you that we'll do a review, but definitely, if you're deploying thousands of officials, ad hoc officials, thousands of polling officials. We had a presiding officer and 3 assistant presiding officers in each polling unit. We had 3,763 units, across 332 wards, and we had to deal with 1.5 million persons who collected PVCs. And so that interaction between INEC and its officials, training the ad hoc staff, deploying them, the logistics arrangements. Of course, on election day itself, you cannot say there won't be one thing that you will have to look at and see whether you be able to improve. But when we do a review, we'll be able to tell ourselves actually what happened. We will not just lay back, soak in the commendations from Nigerians and not actually look at our processes. We have taken those processes to a high level now. The deployment and also the reverse logistics. were top-notch. We know that, but we must do a review first.
Yes, there was something that would be raised, when she was responding to my colleague's question. That has to do with the positioning of the cubicle for the voting, because as you said that the secrecy of the ballot has to be protected.
Yes.
Who was responsible for positioning of cubicles? Because if he's badly positioned, one could easily, while voting, try to show where he voted and of course collect money afterwards.
I heard her when she was talking about the issue of positioning of cubicles. Actually, we reviewed all this before, even before we went to Anambra. There's a relationship between the position of cubicles and this issue of display of who you voted for. If you look at Section 46 of the Electoral Act, it specifically talks about voters casting their ballot in the open, in which case the ballot box must be placed in the open, whereas the cubicle is where you thumbprint in secret. The cubicle is where you thumbprint in secret. In many instances where we even conduct elections in school premises, you keep the cubicle inside the classroom so that nobody will see where the person is thumbprinting. But by law, you must put the ballot box in the open. So what we try to do is to strike a balance so that the distance between where you keep the ballot box and where the cubicle will be so short so that when somebody is coming, they won't have time to actually display the ballot paper. You are supposed to even fold. You find a situation where some people may not even fold. And so, in this type of situation, how many people are you going to arrest for slightly displaying? Where are the correctional centers you put all of them, even if you prosecute them? So, that's an issue we continue to look at, striking a balance between what the law provides and the actual situation on ground to prevent people from displaying, the ballot paper. Somebody hiding somewhere, looking at the moment the person will display, so that the person will go back and maybe get induced or something like that. I think that's what Ene was talking about, and we'll continue to look at it, continue to interview our officials and see how we can overcome that aspect of our arrangement at the polling unit.
Well, I think that the rationale for the provision in the Electoral Act having the ballot box in the open is to ensure that no one voter casts more than one ballot. So you go into the cubicle, you thumbprint, and then you come out, and the whole world will see that it is just one ballot paper, one vote that you are casting. But now there is a mischief that has arisen, which is what we're talking about. That namely, they will go into the cubicle and to abridge the distance between the cubicle and the ballot box after thumbprinting. Some of them you say will not fold. Again, folding depending on the length of the ballot paper. Now there are just about 15 candidates or 15 parties. In the past, it's something that had to be almost like a 6-yard wrapper. And if you didn't fold it properly, then the vote could be void. So they just hold it. Killian, I don't know if you and I were there. Maybe I would have shown you like this. But it's a serious issue ultimately, because as INEC and lawmakers have come up with better ways of ensuring the integrity of the electoral process, manipulators of the system are also getting more ingenious in seeking to bypass the rules, in seeking to bypass technology and so on and so forth, which is why my question is going to NLB, who of course was in charge of the civil society situation room. In Ekiti, it was said to have been blatant in terms of vote buying. And now in Osun, the issue, if you look at both Osun actually and Ekiti, the incidence of violence was much attenuated. But the incidence of vote buying seem to have gone up. Now this remains a sore point, if not an insult, to our collective intelligence and therefore the integrity and credibility of the elections. In your opinion, is it just plain poverty of the voters, or is it seen as a game, or is it that the politicians themselves are just too desperate, and so instead of seeking to convince voters who to vote for, they believe that they have to spend money, and we should be certain anyway that the money they are spending isn't coming from their pocket.
I think the positioning, just like the analysis that you have given, the positioning of the ballot of the voting cubicle can reduce the secrecy of the ballot. It's okay for you to place it differently. In a number of the polling units that we visited and that the observers reported, you can see that the ballot, the cubicle is placed in a way that does not allow secrecy at all. People are looking over their shoulders. Even the way it's placed close to the INEC ad hoc staff, you will find out that they can't even see what they're doing, what these people are doing. One particular polling unit, there were a lot of people were on ground. The voting cubicle allowed 2 people to vote at the same time. One side of the voting cubicle can give you a complete secrecy. The other side doesn't. And majority were using the other side that is so exposed. And I think the secrecy of it is for the INEC officials to direct them. If you know that one side is exposed and the other is not, tell them where to use it. I think what is happening generally here is that the politicians know that the power has gone back to the people. There is the era of ballot snatching is gone. The era of snatching materials is something that you cannot start snatching PVCs and then doing some printing is gone. So the power has gone to the people. But that also entails that we have to take responsibility. Citizens need to realize the power that they have. And they used it this time because if the secrecy of the was protected, you find out that people may take the money, but they will still vote for the people of their choice. So it's a lot more than, they are mastering the way of vote buying. Some of it is obviously, some arrests were made. We're happy that some arrests were made. That was confirmed by the DIG, and we hope that these people will be prosecuted. I think we cannot leave this to INEC alone. INEC can do certain things. Yes, they can tighten a lot of the other ways to prevent vote buying or to protect the secrecy of the voting population or the voters. But we have to be able to take responsibility as citizens as well. One area you say because of poverty, I work with an anti-poverty, agency, and we do a lot in terms of conscientizing people to see that the things they bring for you is for them to also take more from you and further impoverish you. And I think voting with our conscience is something that we have to deal with. We're looking at INEC, but the National Orientation Agency is a big organization. It is the one that is supposed to be in charge of civic education. How are we taking this down? NOA, I don't know how much education they have done in this case. They have 774 representation in terms of political scientists on ground. Have they been given the wherewithal to conduct civic education? So we should not limit the achieving of a beautiful election to INEC alone. And I'm happy that at least the security agencies have done certain things, but I think at the end of the day we are going to have a lot of lessons that will feed back to INEC and then feed back to the security agencies. Like I told the DIG during the briefing with him, I said we should not be meeting alone when we are before the election. We should meet after the election, which should be able to give us opportunity to look at lessons learned. Thank you.
All right, I know, but thank you very much. I mean, you raised an important issue, Kirian, and that's she's talking about the role of civic education in further empowerment of the voter. And she also talked about the role of the National Orientation Agency. Unfortunately, Noah is an orphan. Dr. Garba Abari, who is the DG of Noah, has been a guest on Good Morning Nigeria on a number of occasions. It's also appeared at several fora. The unfortunate thing is that Noah is grossly underfunded. I mean, for it to embark on the advocacy and civic education and training programs that we all envisage, it cannot do it on the basis of the peanuts that it gets at the moment. And why there has been no radical change of the funding dynamics for NOAA is something that continues to remain strange to us.
Yes, and the DG of NOAA, as you pointed out, on a different fora, has actually cried out, to say, look, we can't carry out our responsibility without enough funding. If the funding is inadequate, of course, the advocacy will certainly be inadequate. All right, let's leave that there and bring back Professor Victor Adetola, a senior fellow, Center for Democracy. When Nigeria has had a checkered election history since 1957, or even beyond that, and we'll be trying to see how we can understand and appreciate what elections are all about and how we should conduct ourselves during elections. Of course, in the process of implementing electoral act, we've had electoral acts and what have you, but we also had very tough elections. But we're beginning to arrive at a point where we can say, look, yes, Nigerians now are beginning to understand the concept of electioneering, and of course casting of votes. Now, how would you assess our maturity in terms of Nigerians' status in understanding democracy and how the process should be implemented without having all these glitches and hitches and what have you? Are we making a headway?
I like the way you underscore the point, our conduct, how do we conduct ourselves during the election. And I think it came to the issue of our value and our attitude. I like the contribution about the location of the ballot box, the role of relevant agencies, but our attitude as citizens also matter. And of course, we talk about the ingenuity of Nigerians to beat the regulation. And I think there has to be a giver and a taker. The citizen, like any of us, has responsibility. I'm aware that INEC has introduced hotline where to report incidents of vote buying. I don't have the statistics. How many people have used that to report what they see, even when they don't collect? I think we should use some of the handling of the process before we celebrate the result and the outcome. To key again into the question of our maturity, of course, we are growing as a nation, given our history, several years under military rule, and the distortion of relevant political institutions, civil society, political parties. Regrettably, our political parties have not performed impressively. Again, in all these matters, of course, we're talking about political education for the people via NOAA's agency. How involved are the political parties in shaping what is the content of the message? Of course, we all witnessed the colorful campaign, but where are the issues? What are the issues in the campaign? All this reflects the way we still conduct as both on the part of the political class and even the citizen. What message do we want to hear beyond the dancing and the colorful representation at all levels? Of course, we are emerging into it. One point is that Nigerians want democracy, but they want democracy that will give them good governance, which translates to delivery of public goods. If we continue with elections till they do up and there is no performance in terms of improved livelihood for the people, democracy has nothing. There was a research by Afrobarometer that suggests that people of older generation look nostalgically at the era where, the race system working, the water system working, whatever the system of government. So I think the focus is election that can improve the livelihood of the people.
All right. Thank electoral outcomes that will improve the livelihood of Nigerians. Victor Aluko, let's bring you back again into this conversation. I know that it was a manner of speaking when you posed a rhetorical question that, look, if people are engaging in vote trading, how many of them can you possibly arrest? How many correctional centers can accommodate them? In law, you don't need to arrest a million persons and prosecute a million persons. A few of them that you pick up and then you use them as scapegoats so that the lesson sinks. Now, the issue has arisen as to the menace of vote buying. Violence, of course, is generally being taken care of now. Technology is working, but vote buying. And I raised this question just on the eve of the election last week. And it was said that, again, the buck goes back to INEC. Yes, we know that there are issues around the establishment of an electoral offences commission or tribunal. But what challenge does INEC have with following through in terms of what the security agency will apprehend and then diligent prosecution?
Well, as a commission, there's a need to actually pity us in terms of the ratio of our abilities in this matter. We are not an investigative agency. We manage the polling unit actually, but we find out that many of these issues actually are concluded beyond our reach. These things are done way outside the polling units. And so there's a limit to what we can do. I told you that in each polling unit we have a presiding officer. Then you have 3 assistant presiding officers, young people, who in many instances are so busy, are overwhelmed, attending to voters that they may not even see what's happening 20 meters away from them. And they are under pressure. Trying to make sure that the beavers is working well, trying to look at the voter register, trying to tear the ballot paper for the voter, and trying to make sure that things are not disrupted. And of course, you see party agents breathing down on their necks. So on election day, the typical situation, in a polling unit, it's a matter of tension for our officials. And you see INEC officials also monitoring, moving up and down. Many people have not even eaten, will not even eat until the night. Then people are fasting, forced fasting. And so you find a situation where, in terms of what we can do about issue of vote buying, we're trying our best. We banned all photographic devices, mobile phones from our polling stations, so that you won't take photograph of your ballot paper. But as mentioned, when we close one door, some of our political people will open another one. And so about the issue of about arresting and prosecuting, of course, the entire public heard that when we were in Ekiti, some persons were arrested with money. We've not heard from the police what's happened, but truly, not only INEC, but even the media, the civil society organizations should follow up to know what happened, because there must be some form of deterrent. Some people must be used as scapegoat, as you said. If people know that some people went to jail because of this, next time they will be a little bit careful. But the problem is, even when we expect people to be careful, they try to make it more discreet. I was telling you about how some people will thumbprint, and between the cubicle and the ballot box, they are able to display the ballot paper, and somebody's looking somewhere is able to see and nod his head. And nod his head like this. And these are behavioral issues. It's a suicide problem. So people talk about the relationship between vote selling and poverty. But there's poverty all over the world, and we need just to imbibe good behavior as a country and see that this is a vice that we must rise up against, and that the moral areas are issues we must look into.
Okay. Sorry. Let's be clear about this, because we do hear about complaints about who has the powers to prosecute. Now, if INEC, of course, you will have to engage private prosecutors if that is necessarily the case. Is INEC hamstrung in terms of following through with the prosecution? Just you just all you need is a watertight case against a few elements, and then they go to correctional center.
The issue of prosecution, the police must arrest first. The police must do proper investigation. You can arrest someone if the case is not properly investigated for us to have the facts. When you get to court, the man will get a good lawyer. The judge will throw out the case.
Exactly.
And it'll be a wasted effort. So we are saying let there be arrests when the arrests are necessary. Let there be proper investigation. There should be evidence that the person actually did what he did. You know, the mere fact that you see somebody giving somebody money outside the perimeter of the unit, it's not. You cannot put that truly. It was meant to induce or influence the person. So you need to establish.
Just wait. I think the issue is as follows. I recognize the challenge. I mean, from what Mr. Loko is trying to explain, I recognize that challenge. But take a look at it. When you say nobody is saying INEC should go and apprehend. What we are saying, the police will tell you that yes, they have done their arrest, and then they will develop the case file, which is called in law proofs of evidence, and then it is now for INEC to say, as the saying goes, prosecute and fund the prosecution.
Okay, let's leave this aspect there, but INEC knows that there is a challenge there. Well, you see, the more you tighten the regulatory measures, the more ingenious some Nigerians are in terms of trying to beat it. We may take a break now, really, and when we come back, I will pose this question. I had wanted to bring in NLOB once more on another aspect of this conversation, but let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll get that done. Stay with us.
What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Millions of Nigerians have received COVID-19 vaccine. I have taken my own. What about you? We have taken our own. What about you? I am strong and healthy. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? We are strong and healthy. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Go and get your job. The hospitals, churches, and the mosques. Go and get your job. Health centers, hurry up now. Don't be late. Go and get your job. Bye-bye, Corona. Bye-bye, Corona. This message is brought to you by the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, NPHCDA.
When times are tough, we know that as a mother, one thing you should never compromise on is your family's oral health, because they deserve the best. Oral-B, all-round protection. It's great value. It protects your mouth from harmful bacteria and also protects you against tooth holes and gum problems, which can lead to tooth loss. It strengthens your family's teeth and gives them all-round protection. So remember, protect their future. Oral-B for healthier, stronger teeth in just 1 week.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your ambition. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
Mama Fit, now wetin happen? You no chop? I no dey feel well at all. I just say na malaria dey worry me. And I don't tell Taylor me meet me for here. You supposed to go hospital make you go do test now. Na waste of time, Jare. Mama Fit, abeg no vex, hope I no waste your time. You go stand up make I take your measurement.
Measurements? If you just look the person, you go sew the cloth wey go fit am well.
Na who dey do that kind one?
Now people wey don't conclude say they get malaria where they never do test.
I don't hear. Sense, Mama. I receive sense, so I go do am correct now. Natilo, come measure me. Make I quick go do my malaria test.
Fever na sign of plenty different diseases them, plus including malaria. When you quick do test,
and na malaria, dem go give you correct medicine. Stop dey waste your money on top wetin no dey worry you, and make you finish all the medicine wey dem give you patapata. Na Federal Ministry of Health and American people dem bring una this message.
There are certain moments in the day when I need my me time to just unwind and indulge. Cadbury 3-in-1 hot chocolate.
Now available in 30 grams and 450 grams.
Lalo, Nigeria are the 9th champions in this competition.
The 12th edition of the Africa Women's Cup of Nations is here with 12 teams including reigning champions and 9-time winners, Super Falcons of Nigeria, all in contention from July 2 to 23 in Rabat, Morocco. You can catch all the actions live on the NTA Network Service and NTA Sports 24, channel 270 on StarTimes, 434 on StarSat and 731 on Free TV. Come, join us to promote another championship run by the Super Falcons. For your advert placement, please call Hawa on 0803 312 1022. Africa Women's Cup of Nations, Rabat 2022. Game on!
All right, we thank you for still staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria. And of course, our topic is a review of the just concluded Osho governorship election. In every election, especially in Nigeria and of course some African countries, in elections, there's always an intricate network of some activities from BVAS accreditation and other aspects. But one aspect I'd like NOB to come in here is that of electronic transmission of results. So far, people believe it's a game changer. What was the performance or percentage of performance of transmission or uploading the results from the ward levels to the collection center? How did it play out in Oshu election?
I think again is another improvement coming from where we are. We saw that happening in Anambra, and that's why we really were agitating for the electoral, bill to be passed at that time. We're talking about it because we know that the secrecy of the ballot and also the transparency of the ballot will be, at least you can be evidenced by the transmission, which the House then or the Parliament was saying it was really doubting, and that's how we had to go back and forth. In Osun, again, it's a lot of improvement in terms of transmission. Immediately the votes were cast once the voting ended and all, and it's done in a very transparent manner, and the results were pasted. One of the things that you have to, the line between the political parties in some of the polling units, it's surprising to see certain things being done, like people being helped to print, which was not in many places, but in a few cases where we witnessed that, there was a lot of silence from the other political parties, as if together they had, in some of them had really put themselves together to say, we want to either this party wins or that party. The individuality was not seen, while in one of the political polling unit, I saw a political party representative really standing and saying, no, you cannot do this again, you cannot do that again, you cannot lead somebody and then go and show the person. So I think the political parties really need to be able to stand for themselves. It doesn't matter if you are not a major political party, but you need to protect your votes. Those little votes that you are getting also speaks volume for yourself. Like Prof, mentioned, political education is another issue, but taking responsibility as citizens for what we are getting, the orientation, we need to value reorientation. It's very, very important. We are being degraded by the politicians, and I think Dr. Aluko also mentioned there, that the political class need to stay away from the system, and we need to be able to take them out of the system. But one major one that they are ignoring, political parties are ignoring, is that they ought to also have political education themselves. Like the money that they have received, they are getting from aspirants now, the billions that they have collected. God knows what they are going to use it for. But so political education is not left for the governmental agencies alone. I want to bring us back to the point which was raised earlier, and that is on the National Orientation Agency. Stanley, brought it up there. We need to be able to look at that. What is the use of National Orientation Agency? As a little girl, I saw the National Orientation Agency, the Federal Ministry of Information then, with their big trucks that they used to take to villages if they want somebody to get it right. The funding of INEC for, election, therefore, should we look at other agencies to also capture it as a very important environment? But back to your electronic transmission, by 10 a.m., by 10 p.m., we had almost all the results loaded on INEC portal. And the INEC was very, very transparent. And I'm happy that Professor Mahmoud committed in the stakeholders meeting which held on Tuesday, that they were very, very serious about issues of vote buying. I think it's becoming like the case of Enekede Bed, to say that, since hunters have learned to shoot without missing, he too have learned to also patch without swinging the arms for enough, the vulnerability. So perfection is what some people are doing, but I think I'm really happy that the voting process, power has gone to the people, and whatever you do now, you have to talk to the people, but the people will have to take a destiny in their hands. Helping, Nigeria is very, very, very good for those who are not physically challenged. But if you look at the cubicle now, it gives a secrecy, but the placement is another, and we cannot look the other way. In that way, INEC needs to improve. Thank you.
NLB, thank you very much there for your response. I want to ask Professor Adetola a question, and this is also going to be of interest to you, and I imagine also Victor Aluko, who is INEC Director of Voter Education and Publicity. In terms of the praise that INEC and other stakeholders have received for the conduct of the Osun election, turnout impressive by comparison to what happened in the past. Very few incidents of violence. Voters conducted themselves well. Beavers worked tremendously. Electronic transmission of results and so on and so forth. And you did say, Prof, that in a sense this is a sign of things to come ahead of the 2023 election. Now, let's have some reality check. This is a standalone election. In the general elections next year, we'll be dealing with 36 constituencies plus the Federal Capital Territory, which makes it 37. And then there are parts of the country that are still ravaged by incidents of insecurity, banditry, kidnapping, terrorism. And then there are also, in some instances, in Osun, we didn't see that now, underage voting. And just plain disruption of the voting process. What can we do to carry over the success in Osun into these other scenarios where you will have potential landmines in the 2023 elections?
Very great. I'm proud to be a Nigerian. Among other things, Nigerians don't just keep quiet. They're not a set of people that you easily ask them to keep quiet. If you are doing something that they are impressed, they come out openly to tell you. And if you are doing the other way, they also tell you. I think that is one thing to take care of. And where there have been a lot of praises for INEC and other relevant agencies, but that is not for them to go to sleep. I heard Mr. Luku just said about, and it is the routine thing for them to do a very thorough post-event review and take lesson learned, not only for INET. I imagine the security agencies will do, just like so many civil society organizations. The recommendation from all this platform will be useful. And of course, INEC increasingly is meeting with all these critical stakeholders. So that provides opportunity to harness this recommendation in terms of lesson learned and what to do. I think the issue of the security topography of the country, there are challenges, but just the way it's been addressed in this instance, surely I do expect that that will be done. The security agencies need to help us gain confidence, just like in the case of Ekiti and Osun, but more importantly, Osun, because the voters turnout very impressive, because the people were assured. People need to be assured that they are secure and they can vote, and I think with that we can look forward. The issue of some of the technology devices in terms of enhancing the deployment of technology, I think there have been remarkable improvement, like it's been suggested. Some of the reviews that have come up, INEC will need to intensify training. And another innovation that has been very useful, the kind of stakeholders interaction that INEC chair and its official has done, and even test running some of this equipment before time, I think has been useful. But there is a challenge, and that is our political class, the politicians. They also need to come out and level up with the kind of seriousness that the institution of INEC, the agencies are putting in. And if they work along this line, we are likely to see a better election come 2023.
Yeah, yes, and of course, if INEC is going to also ramp up in terms of, having enough manpower, to execute that huge election of 2023, which will involve, as my colleague said, the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. Now, let's talk about the turnout in Osun State election. Some say 45% turnout, and we're giving it a pass mark. That's up to 50%. So why should it be a pass mark, as people are saying? We had about 76% of PVC collection, right, in Osun State, and now recording a turnout of about 45%. What's your view about that? I know all this also have to do with the issue of PVC collection and what have you.
Yes. We actually have 1.9 million registered voters. 1.9 million, just a round figure. While the PVC is collected about 1.5 million, just a little above 1.5 million. So let's use the figure 1.5. And then the total votes cast is around 800,000, something like that. And when you look at it, it's about 55, it's around 55% turnout. Actually, say 54 points. And when you round it up to the final figure, it's 55% turnout. Because we are calculating that percentage based on those who collected PVCs. We are not using those who are registered. Those who collected PVCs, those are the people who are eligible to vote. So when you use the figure of those who collected PVCs, you have around 55%.
Are you supposed to be calculating those who collected PVCs or those who were able to cast their votes on the voting?
No, those who collected PVCs are actually those that are eligible to
cast their votes.
So you use that figure as a baseline. Those are the people that are by law eligible to vote. But if you registered and you did not collect your PVC, you just a citizen. It's like a car that does not have petrol. It cannot move, so you cannot say the number of cars on the road.
Yes. So, that's why I'm concerned about this might not be a real issue, but it makes sense. If you calculating your percentage of turnout with people who collected the PVC but who couldn't vote, what sense does it make? I thought that you were doing that based on those who were able to cast their votes.
No, the number of accredited voters number of accredited voters, in each unit. Those are the people who actually came to vote. But we have to base it on those who collect the eligible persons by law.
Okay.
Because that means some turned out, some did not turn out. So to know the number of people who turned out, you have to know the number of persons who did not turn out. So those who actually collected PVCs, that is the data used to calculate the turnout. That is, those who came to our polling units on election day, 55% of those who collected PVCs came to our polling unit on election day. That's just the statistics.
Okay, well, this used to be an issue in the past. I think, as you said, the law, that's the act, the INEC guidelines have streamlined all of that now in terms of, for instance, calculating the margin of lead, no longer based on the number of registered voters. But I would like Ene to also weigh in on the question that I asked Prof. earlier about us being wary of extrapolating the success of Osun into 2023 against the backdrop of some of the factors that are itemized. Prof already responded to some of those factors, but it's also the case that some of those factors are external to INEC. I mean, violence, for instance, whether unknown gunmen, whether bandits, kidnappers, or terrorists. I mean, INEC is not a terrorist organization. Underage voting, these are also factors that are external to INEC. What can we do when these factors begin to pop up, as they just might in some parts of the country during the general elections next year?
I think the stakeholder meetings that INEC gets to conduct is very, very important. There are times that they bring it down to sectorial meetings. And I think in this case, coming to Osun, before Osun, there were a series of meetings. And but in Osun, the stakeholders meeting brought together almost everyone. INEC brought together everyone, which was and the INEC chairman addressed the meeting himself. We're happy that there was a political commitment from the IGP because he was personally in Osun, in Osogbo. And then we had the Ooni of Ife. So the traditional rulers were also represented. All the service chiefs were represented. And what they did is not only from those who were at the state level, but they came from the national as well. So I think that's the commitment of the expertise that is needed, including the army. The army were on ground. And with the meeting we had with the DIG as well, all the service chiefs were on ground. I think if we can close the loopholes, value reorientation of the security agencies, of every human person, because we're all covered as citizens under the Constitution. I think it's very, very important for us to pull down there. But the citizens need to do their own bit. How are we going to get there? Is value reorientation. And the flashpoints, the issues of security, were handled by the security. I know that there was one incident where somebody was trying to disrupt elections because when it was coming down to the voting time, and government police officers just took the guy, and I like the way they didn't malhandle him. We just saw him, he was, they told him to kneel down there. To the glare of the people, they took him out of the perimeter and they told him to kneel down, and he was arrested. So it depends on the orientation of the people. We also had a monitoring group by very senior police officers who were hovering. That was a very important one. INEC also had its own responsibility. They had the monitoring unit, and we saw them in action. One area where they had they placed the polling unit was inside the palace, and they moved it out. Sorry. I'm going. Okay, and they were able to move it out. I think every agency that is involved, they need to be able to perform. The security agencies will also need to come back. The men that we see, just like what was mentioned by the INEC representative, Dr. Aluko, there is need to be able to release allowances and all that. Though we didn't have so many complaints, but some of the agencies, I'm not going to name one in particular, I said they had not even been paid for Ekiti. their allowances have not been paid. Let's take that very seriously. Transparency and accountability is an issue. Corruption is an issue, even in the system. So
all right, but no, we just have to pause it there. But you have just raised a very important issue here that those who worked at the Ekiti elections have not yet received their allowances. I will be on notice and do something about that. It's at this point, gentlemen and lady, that we conclude this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I'd like to appreciate Victor Aluko, Director of Voter Education and Publicity at the Independent National Electoral Commission. Victor, thank you very much for coming. Professor Victor Atedola, we have two Victors here this morning. Professor Victor Adetola, Senior Fellow, Center for Advocacy and Development, and Professor of Political Science at the University of Jos. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us along the line of Osho's governorship election. And now, via Zoom, we had from Oshobo, NLB, of course, he's a regular here, Country Director, Action Aid, and the convener of Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room. We appreciate you for coming this morning. Now, let's take some foreign tidbits.
Experts have predicted that the United Kingdom might just be having its hottest day on record this week, with temperatures forecast to heat up to 41 degrees Celsius. The Meteorological Office has issued a red extreme heat warning in much of England, from London and the southeast up to York and Manchester. High temperatures are also forecast across the UK, with amber warnings in the rest of England, all of Wales and parts of Scotland. London is set to be one of the hottest places in the world on Monday, with temperatures soaring above the Western Sahara and the Caribbean. The capital is forecast to be hotter than Dakar in Western Sahara, Nassau in the Bahamas, Kingston in Jamaica, Malaga in Spain, and Athens in Greece. Gunning for the top job in Britain, Conservative rivals clashed over tax policies in the second live debate in their bid to be the new Prime Minister. Rishi Sunak pushed back against Liz Truss after she accused him of raising taxes to the hottest level in 70 years, adding that raising taxes will choke off economic growth. The five contenders to replace Boris Johnson were asked whether they would let him sit at their cabinet table during the debate, but none of them raised their hands. Now in Africa, South Africa's power distribution ESCOM has assured that the frequent power cuts will come to an end by the end of the week. The power cuts in the country has caused more generators to be in operation. While meeting President Cyril Ramaphosa at Tutuka Power Station, the head of ESCOM said that by the end of July, the risk would be significantly diminished once Unit 2, the Kilberg Nuclear Power Station, comes back onto the grid. The country has endured almost 2 weeks of Stage 6 load shedding, which entails multiple power cuts a day, each lasting between 2 and 4 hours. Each of the up to 8 stages of load shedding cost the country's economy an additional $29 million a day in lost activity. It further said that the impact on jobs is particularly worrying in a country grappling with 34.5% unemployment in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic.
All right, that's been Good Morning Nigeria for us today. We appreciate you being with us. Join us again tomorrow for another package of the program. Same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian for my have a good day.
Days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
Hey, beautiful. Your eyes, your smile are all begging me to take you home tonight. Now reading page 3. Experience unlimited super-fast internet access from Entel 4G. Entel. Live more.
The National Broadcasting Commission has observed with concern the misuse of the airwaves to propagate incendiary materials by different groups in some broadcasting stations in recent times. While appreciating the need for educating, informing, and enlightening the public on issues bordering on our national development, the Commission wishes to seize this opportunity to advise broadcasters to be circumspect in the handling of news and current affairs programs by exhibiting the necessary professionalism. Consequently, the Commission implores broadcasters to advise guests and/or analysts on their platforms not to polarize the citizenry with divisive rhetorics in driving home their points. Ensure that every news and current affairs program conforms with the provision of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code. Take their social responsibility requirements seriously. Therefore, the Commission reminds broadcasters to be guided by the provisions of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code, especially the underlisted sections 5.3.3b. The broadcasters shall, in using political materials for news and current affairs programs, avoid hate speech, inflammatory, derogatory, and divisive remarks or allusions. 5.4.1f. The broadcaster shall not transmit divisive material that may threaten or compromise the indivisibility and indissolubility of Nigeria as a sovereign state. 5.5.6. The broadcaster shall have a delay mechanism to guard against possible undesirable content. Please note that every broadcast station is responsible for the content it transmits and shall be held liable for any content in violation of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code. Be advised.
This is the network service of the NDA.